Hello, I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. I would like to finish off the video I just posted. This is still about how to pivot out of the how to pivot out globally out of the empire of bullshit. The previous video was cut off, and it was long enough as it was. So but it's very, very interesting when these things happen. I think my videos are being watched live. And it seemed to be the case that literally the intelligence agency thought, right, you've been banging on for too long, we're bored, that's it. So what I would like to finish off with is a couple of things that I think you should know. Because essentially what I've shown you so far is just very general. It's about how to recapture a system that has just been captured by some way or another. Capture can happen by miscellaneous means, just through corruption, through psychopaths, monetary interests, ulterior motives, people who want other people harm, people who want to take over the company, many other things. And remember that actually capture, the only thing capture actually means is it has been captured by something. It's not working the way it should. So I use these diagrams to indicate what a captured organization looks like. There are always certain regions, certain domains where people work exactly like the organization should work. This is what I call a domain. Oops. And then there are also domains which are entirely captured. But capture just means that these units, these people inside the organogram, do not work the way you would expect them to work, given what it says on the tin, given what it says on the organization. So, for example, if you have a captured police force, let's say you have a captured officer, if he goes out and shoots somebody illegally, even though there wasn't a reason to shoot this person, well, that's capture. He could have been, in the moment, been captured by his own fear, captured by his own, let's say, racism. If he just, shot somebody from a minority, and it turns out that, let's say, he's been involved with a right-wing organization and just hates foreigners. I mean, it has happened. I don't want to smear the police that this is what always happens, because you get the reverse as well. You get literally white police officers being turned on by gangs. But essentially in the full palette of everything that can go wrong. And I do not want to just smear the police specifically, because doctors get captured by the pharma industry. Doctors get captured by their own stupidity. In fact, I once asked this question of, in my video about capture, at the end, I asked the quiz question, what do you think the most common form of capture is? And the answer is actually stupidity. It is just innocent, honest stupidity, incompetence. Because then it is almost, it is like capture, because you are caught up by not knowing, or just being frankly too stupid to do something. It does happen. It happened to me as well. Sometimes I was too stupid to do the things I had to do, and I just, I only noticed the one instances where I did discover, and I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I'm such an idiot. And then you correct your mistakes, but in that moment, you have not worked how you should have worked. So in a sense, inside the organogram, you did not what, you should have done. And in most cases, it's pretty minor mistakes. You just miss a meeting because you forget about it, or this is not scary capture, but inside the organogram, you're already in that moment. You haven't acted how you should have and how you even intended yourself. But this is something to keep in mind also when you're recapturing a system, that sometimes people will not work the way they should because of other types of capture. It's not necessarily this big, scary infiltration that I keep going on about that seems to come from the intelligence agencies and go into the military-industrial complex using military weapons, go into healthcare. And yes, this is what you're trying to unravel, but every single time you approach somebody, you're not sure if they are part of the big, actual capture, or if it's just genuine, honest stupidity, or being tired, or having, a divorce proceedings in the background, or the cat died, or something. People sometimes don't act the way they should for many other reasons. And I want you to keep it in mind and essentially think like Sherlock Holmes, think like a lawyer, and an actual investigator, and do the forensics properly and ask yourself, could this have been just genuine ignorance? Genuine not knowing, genuinely being fearful of doing something wrong? And keep that in mind, because if you start stomping on this person's head as if he was part of real capture, okay, you can still force him to do what he should do, by going back and asking him to correct his mistake, but always essentially increase pressure gradually. Don't just stomp on people's heads. Okay, so I would like to finish off this entire series, and so now that you understood this, that there are these different forms of capture, when we're moving forward, we want to essentially tidy up this real capture coming from the top, and from what I can tell from the intelligence agencies. The fact that they are assaulting people with microwave weapons, seem to have tentacles in the pharma industry and the weapons industry, seem to try to read out people's brain prints, remote control them, which, as scary and as sci-fi it might sound, it is actually possible. So, sad to tell you, but this is real, and this is what we're trying to figure out. We are in a very, very special situation, because I'm now referring specifically to the intelligence agencies in this video. And it's because if you have capture through the intelligence agencies, which actually happens more often than you think, because they're a secret organization, because they do not have transparency. In fact, they're their own agents. So transparency means no one can look inside from the outside. So there are no corrective mechanisms from outside. On top of that, in the UK, for example, their agents are bound by the Official Secrets Act. In other countries, they've got equivalent things to gag their own people. So then the people can't go from the inside out either and notify others that something is seriously going wrong. And if you look at past whistleblowers and what horrific things seem to have randomly happened to them, then you also see what severe consequences there are. So this is a very, very, it is essentially because we have never looked into the intelligence agencies. If you open it, we get essentially just the horrors, not just that are currently being generated, we get the horrors integrated over all previous decades and even centuries that have been festering in this ancient, ossified, psychopathic, degenerate organization. Sorry, so that's just how it is. But now, if we are running the program of recapture and we have intelligence agency involvement, it's essentially even harder. It's one layer up. So what I've shown you here is the process you would run to recapture an organization. If it was, maybe the boss turns out to be corrupt, or, having some little, side business and so on. That's minor. When you have infiltration and capture by a government secret service, or, as I put it now to you, is the case here, which is essentially an internationally networked conglomerate of intelligence agencies that act like as if they were one intelligence agency, you are up against essentially the hardest thing you can do in your life. So not many people enter this, happily or willingly. I got dragged in because they started, and they still are, shooting into my head with microwave weapons. They're beaming my head as I speak. This is why I sometimes lose the thread. Sometimes I slow down. I've got blurry vision as I speak to you, because they're also radiating my head. They are doing essentially non-stop things. So even though I seem functional, I'm actually under a huge load. I can barely concentrate. I've got this beam coming into my head, and a beam from this side here. And it's very, very confusing. They seem to be irradiating me with two different beams. So this is what we're dealing with. I'm trying to pull through this video. And now let's talk about how special the situation is, and what extra layers do we have to, what extra things do we have to do in this very special situation of tackling essentially the intelligence agencies. We need some essentially special effort, special tools, because these guys work with special tools. These guys are professionals in essentially sabotage, infiltration, deception, and assassination. Yay! And these are the guys we're up against. So, of course, what you expect is a lot of infiltration, sabotage, deception, and some assassinations, and maiming as well, as a precursor to assassination. So I myself, I had an assassination attempt. I have non-stop maiming with microwave weapons. I had hacking. My websites got hacked. My email was taken offline for 2 weeks, or even longer, when I was preparing my court case. So this is serious shit we're dealing with. So I need you all to be on the ball, and we need to have certain mechanisms put into place to have this shut down. Because essentially, because of the Official Secrets Act, because of a lack of transparency, and because of, frankly, an overbearing load of male arrogance, sexual aggression, general machismo, dominance, threats, and all that, the intelligence agencies have never been tidied up, and they got worse and worse and worse and worse. In every country, not just the UK and Germany and Switzerland, which is where most of my problems are. but in all countries. I don't know a single country where you will find people talking really positively about the highly intelligent, people in the intelligence agencies doing stuff of glowing integrity all the time. It just doesn't happen. And that's because if you have a secret system, it always ends up in deep capture by psychopaths, essentially, and criminals. There's no other way. Pyramid organizations, as actually a very intelligent man called Paul Marco just put it to me recently in my interview with him, which I shall post. He said pyramid organizations are psychopath-magnets, and that's exactly the conclusion I came to, because it's essentially deep capture is the end state. Capture occurs naturally in all systems, and the higher the pyramid, essentially the thicker the layer in the end of captured people and budding psychopaths trying to get to the top. But these psychopaths essentially always just climb to the top. So essentially the concentration of psychopaths increases towards the top naturally. You can stand on your head and spin around trying to avoid that, but this is what these systems essentially will tend to naturally. You can write a computer simulation mapping this out and you will come to the same conclusion. So pyramid organizations are essentially psychopath-magnets. And I should say Paul Marco was an organizational psychologist and with several decades of experience, so he knows what he's talking about. We're totally on one page on this. So now what are we going to do with regards to the intelligence agencies? And here it is. The 2 points I wanted to make last time that I got cut off from is essentially that we have to essentially, when we start working, incorporate the specific situation that we are dealing with: professional saboteurs, con artists, and assassins. Right? This has to be incorporated. We shouldn't be surprised that we'll be hit by, essentially mutilation, targeted sabotage, and an awful lot of deception. That's just part of the deal. So we have to be treading very carefully, making sure we know what we're talking about, because there will be deception. And every single time we get it wrong, I mean, it's natural that you will get some things wrong, because they're throwing bullshit at you left, right, and center. And if you then step on bullshit or take it in and you say, oh, I think it's this way, and actually it's just deception, they'll go, ha 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 ha, you don't know what you're talking about. Or ha 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 ha, you're mad. It is childish. It's absolutely idiotic and degenerate. But hey, yeah, we're dealing with the empire of bullshit. So, right, we're not going to expect Nobel Prize winning output from this sort of organization. So that's what we're dealing with. How to get around that? Well, first of all, expect infiltration. Whoever you're dealing with could be infiltrated. Of course, you're watching this and you think maybe she's infiltrated, and I try to show you that if you're really worried, you can call my college, you can look at my past results, right? You can look at what I'm putting out and convince yourself that really I was a research fellow at St. John's College, Oxford. Yes, I really had a court case. You can find the court papers on my website under court cases. I really did go to the High Court. You can find the transcripts, you can find the judgment, you can make up your mind. This is all real. By the way, I'm also working with the High Court to actually have my court case and the judgment published, because you can't search it online. Last time I checked, I couldn't find it online, but I emailed the High Court as well as requesting the audio recordings for my hearings, because the transcript has been tampered with and I can show that that's the case. But they didn't get back to me yet. This is all part of, tidying this stuff up. So expect infiltration and double check. Now, it's very hard. I found it very hard to know who's really an agent and who isn't. It takes some time. Sometimes they make howling mistakes. Sometimes they literally jeer and laugh in your face. And then it's pretty easy, right? But sometimes they're more subtle. And I found that with most infiltrators, they will give you stuff that's true intermixed with bullshit. I mean, they're agents of bullshit, so they will have to give you some bullshit, right? That's the product they produce. Now, what you can do is flip out and go, oh my God, I've just been bullshitted, when you discover, like, oh my God, you can't do anything because you're infiltrated all the time. Well, that's a very, you get back to zero, and that's what they want. Instead, one better way is to say, I now found out this person is an agent. Now let's go back and let's see, how did he do it? How did he trick me? Did he try to look like someone I like? Did he try to talk like someone I like? Did he try to emulate something I was doing at the time? And if this was pulled off in a way that matched something that you were searching online, that's evidence for GCHQ style infiltration. Note it down. Write it down, make it public, and say, this is the evidence I've got. To me, it looks like this. If this is really the case, then this means this, 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 and this, and make it public, broadcast it, because then bit by bit, we learn the tricks of these shysters. Sorry about my language, but that's essentially what it is. I really want to call a spade a spade. This is essentially just subverting people who are desperately fighting for their lives in case of crimes against humanity. It doesn't get lower than that, you know? So, doesn't matter. You take the good bits and then you say, oh, he actually told me this, which turned out to be true. Then he told me, or she told me that, and it turned out to be a lie. Remember that it might be someone who's also genuinely just misinformed in society. You know, they might have been bullshitted by another agent in turn. But don't worry, because the longer you are in this game, you know, the longer you are in this game, the more you will actually learn how to go about doing this, you know. And also remember, we also try to uncover who these bullshitters are. And once you have their face, you know, don't worry, they're still going to stay on planet Earth. And our society is just going to get ever more transparent. So whatever, you know, nonsense they do, it's going to stick to them forever. So from now on, the intelligence agencies have to get used to that. They have to up their game, right? They really have to start cooperating and cut the bullcrap, because any bullcrap will stay stuck to a certain person. So what to do? So when you're infiltrated, don't panic. Sieve it, what was true, what wasn't. And then go back and find out how did they bullshit me, and learn and make it public. If you don't want to name names because you feel like it might be libel, I mean, you can always say, and that's the truth, right, that my impression is allegedly da 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 da, right? As far as I can tell, based on what I have seen, I would say da da da, my opinion is, or I was led to believe that da da da, yeah? That's not a libel case, that's just saying the truth. Right? If you say, I am 100% sure that this person is that, you better have some evidence, right? You know. But it's still about public disclosure. So there are things you can say. You know, do not fall for this thing that the lawyers are also trying to put out, especially the lawyers of the empire of bullshit, like you're not allowed to say anything unless you have ultimate proof. No. You can say a lot of things, and you have to essentially also give other people circumstantial evidence, like what happened to you. All the other things that happen to you are essentially telltale signs of how the system works. So we need all that. Do not be scared by infiltrators. Expect them, study their methods, and make it public. Okay? And in fact, I also put the idea out, you know, to the people who contacted me, that maybe we should all just have, in the end, literally just broadcast. You know how you have online videos, people who are dissecting false flag operations, you know, when the state pulls off essentially terror attacks and other attacks to spoof, to scare the population, to then pull off some political nonsense. Well, if you don't know what a false flag is, just type it into Google or YouTube and then look at the documentation, because there's some excellent material put out, and you will very quickly learn what a false flag is. But essentially, with the intelligence agencies, it's that sort of deception. They will pull off false flags in the victims' lives. They will infiltrate. They'll try to deceive, and you know. And we have to learn how they do it, and we have to expose them. Do not be scared. Expect it. And essentially, what I also would like to say about this is that. Yeah, I think that the second point, actually the second point was about amplify your impact, you know. I mean, previously, in the previous video, I said if you're approaching a corrupt unit, or one that you think that you're corrupt, don't approach it alone. Approach it ideally in a group. And if you're not all together at the same time in the same office, it doesn't matter. Oops, one magnet stopped working. If you're not all together in one group, doesn't matter. You can also be in a group if you are approaching the same unit one after the other. You know, maybe with the same complaint, until they give in. So that's the thing. Amplify your effect, but also you can amplify it by just putting it out publicly, making it public, and say, I have experienced this. You know, always try to get an amplification effect. People will see your videos. People will see your YouTube videos, and remember, your views and your followers on Twitter, on YouTube, and many others do not necessarily reflect reality. right? That we know. That we know. We really, there's ways to check that, and I'm 100% certain that certainly YouTube views are not any reflection of reality at all. And there's ways you can check. You expect a certain turn-on curve, and if something is really going up and then suddenly it stops and the view count stays the same, and it kind of goes up exponentially and then it kind of goes flat, you think, this is not this is not how a natural system actually acts. So there's many, many ways to do that, and people have shown that in the past. So get over that. It's part of the deception. It's part of the bullcrap. And if you're actually trying to change something and go up against crime, you will be hit in the face with even more bullcrap. But that's to be expected, not to be to get upset about. So amplify your effect. But now I would like to dedicate another 5 minutes about the actual study. Study their methods. And this is really important, because remember that there's only a very limited number of ways that people can be subverted and bullshitted. I mean, at first the possibilities seem endless, but then some are really expensive, some are too crazy. In a subtle way, there are only, so many things. And also the toolbox of the intelligence agencies is limited. I mean, this is a profession that has been around since forever, right? So they pass on their own knowledge, but at the same time, right, it's not exactly rocket science. I still have to see the Nobel Prize for the biggest con artist, Magicians have been around, con artists have been around, but the ways they can find, it's just limited. They can use modern technology. But even that's limited, right? And especially with modern technology, what a lot of people don't realize is that whatever you do in these complex computer systems that we have these days, even if you hack something and you go into a database, because of the interconnectedness, there are traces everywhere. And essentially, the more you do, the more traces there are. Okay? All the time. All the time. And there are log files and things that can be accessed where literally technicians try to make sure that the systems work. And essentially, they keep pinging the system. They keep pulling data from the system just to ensure it works normally. So if there's a hack attack, it will show up in even those files. So if you want to have a real hack attack where you just hide that it happened, on who did it, and when it happened, and where it came from, that's extremely hard. That's even for nation state. It takes like decades of actually studying what they want to hack, how they want to pull it off, and it's too much. So when you're talking about just the random crap of the empire of bullshit that they throw into your face, especially if it's digital, don't worry. If it's digital, you just say, great. Any evidence, website hacking, email hacking, funny emails, spam emails that essentially are commentary on your life, keep those, print them off, keep them, log them, database them, burn them on CD, keep the evidence, right? Because we know this is happening. Essentially, leaked documents for GCHQ have already documented that they put a lot of effort into, what was it again? Deny, degrade, destroy, what is it, 5Ds, 3Ds, I have no idea. But it was basically this. It's essentially just cock things up. Well, thank you, GCHQ. It's not like, this would be actual criminal sabotage, right? And these people do it before somebody was accused of something and went through a court case. So essentially, we already know we have GCHQ and the same for the NSA, right? So loose cannons just running around like a bunch of morons, denying people access or taking, things offline and degrading and destroying. I mean, that's amazing. That's really good. It must be awesome to live to work in those companies and just like work on essentially degeneration. Yeah, so we know that this crap is going on, and victims like myself, we have experienced this full blast. But doesn't matter. The more shit they do, the more evidence we have. And this is how we're going to ratchet forward. So study their methods. And then especially, remember, it is a two-way street. Even if you have brain interference, like they do it with me, and you have stalking and infiltration, and they try to get into your medical care and sabotage you, and I had doctors trying to intimidate me and mock me, literally in the most personal sort of situation that you can have. This guy is just going on about, what nationality am I, and where my parents came from, and where was I born, where were my siblings born, and what nationality, This is not really what a doctor should be doing. And this guy spent like 10, 15 minutes just going on. Meanwhile, having a big jeering grin on his face. And what nationality are you, being one of these like harassment triggers that have been used by MI5 like over and over and over and over. And the idea is for you to get disconcerted. But instead, you just say, hang on, it's a two-way street. You give me bullshit, but immediately I've got a handle on your neck. And I know that that doctor, for example, is an agent of the empire of bullshit. Wicked. They have just exposed themselves. Collect the names. If you have good evidence, name names. If you don't have evidence or you're not comfortable, name what has been done to you and how it has been done to you. You know? Do all that, expose them, take it that it's a two-way street. The same with the gang-stalkers. Photograph them. Frickin' photograph them. And also what you can do, and you know, this is, I asked a lawyer in Germany, I said, am I allowed to photograph my stalkers? And she says, yeah. I think in Germany, I have to remember which Bundesland it was, in the case of especially stalking, there was a judgment saying that yes, it is allowed to photograph people in the street, even specifically, because you know, stalking is so sophisticated and so hard for the victim to prove that they do need these extra means. And if you have photographic evidence in a German court, yes, that is, you know, certain. I think that was a Landesgericht, like a state court that decided that. So there are these cases, and judges are not all captured and crazy, you know. So it is okay, even to use that evidence in court in Germany in the case of stalking. As far as I know, this is a court case I definitely remember. But specifically, my German lawyer also told me, yes, you can photograph outside, unless you're photographing women up the skirt or down their cleavage or some absolutely inappropriate stuff like that. If you're just taking normal photographs, it is okay. And also, right, because your stalkers keep changing, no one can accuse you that you stalked somebody and photographed the same person 16 times, right? That's the beauty of it. They use these centralized stalking networks so that we don't have the evidence, but in reverse, you can photograph their faces because you're never going to see the same person again, right? So just photograph them. And why should you photograph them? And I tell you why. It's because already Facebook has face recognition, right? Sometimes like names pop up for a person who appears in a video, you know. I've heard about actually if they have been tagged in another video, the name appears automatically. So imagine, this is again free face recognition that comes with your software, with Facebook, sorry, for free. Now this sort of face recognition, I tell you, will be made even more public. You know, as our privacy gets peeled back, the privacy of these bloody stalkers get also peeled back. And the more information they make public, the more information we have on their bloody agents from the empire of bullshit. And then you can literally just upload a page. I'll predict this now. You will be able to upload a picture to a page, and the software will determine who this is. So just get the evidence now. You have the rest of your life and all technological advances that are coming in the next year to use the evidence. So collect it now. The same with voice samples. Did you notice how all the banks started changing from this, if you want option blah blah, press 3. Instead, some of them don't even allow you to press anymore. Some say you can say the number 3, others say just press 3. But I have now seen banks which don't even give you the option to press 3. You have to say 3. Why do they do that? Because pressing 3 was so easy. It's because they're collecting your voice samples. It's for security. If the same person calls, you can from their voice print recognize if this is the account owner. It's to combat fraud. But banks, as we know, also have side businesses, and what they're doing is essentially assembling huge voice print databases. Can't be helped. That's just what they do. Okay, we can get upset about that, or else we can say wicked. So at some point, I can upload a video to, you know, whatever, spybook.com later on, and then literally the software will, based on the voice print and the face print, tag this person. You know, or you just hear an audio sample with people in the background, and the software will say who this person is who's speaking. I predict that this is the future. I can already see the development. Don't have to wait for long. I think it's less than 10 years and we'll have this stuff. So get the evidence now. These are crimes against humanity. These are domestic terrorism programs. based on the Stasi-Zersetzung, based on COINTELPRO. This is utterly illegal. It's destroying lives. It's destroying people's psychological well-being. Get the fuckers. I'm sorry about the language, but that's just what we're dealing with. So audio samples, photographs, everything you can gather, say it's a two-way street. So you're giving me bullshit? Wonderful, it's a two-way street. Let's just get some information from you and keep going, right? Don't get upset, just go wicked. So that's very good. Now another thing is, remember, whatever somebody does, it leaves traces. So whatever bullshit they do, it leaves traces. And it gives away what bullshit they do, how they did it, and what the purpose is, okay? It always is given away, and you have to all now switch to become forensic experts, okay? And I'm going to tell you a couple of things that you should also watch out for, especially when you're dealing with the intelligence agencies, because they are essentially professional con artists, right? And assassins, professional saboteurs, con artists, and assassins. So you better be careful, better keep your eyes open, and better get all the frickin' data from these guys you can get. So, another thing that's very, very good is if you get spam mail that seems to be addressing your personal life situation. So I told you that there's, I should make a specific video about these court cases, but there is a court case called Philip Kerr versus MI5, which started as Philip Kerr versus Attorney General in the High Court and was heard in February 2015. Now, with Philip Kerr, I spoke to the guy after his second hearing in front of the Investigatory Powers Tribunal, and he also mentioned that he received essentially spam mail that was commenting on what he was doing. The one thing that I remember from my discussion is that he was getting in touch with lawyers, and he started getting spam mail where essentially one spam mail was just suddenly making adverts for like steam generators, like hot steam generators or something like that, implying that the lawyer who'd encouraged him and said, yes, I really think you've got a valid case, was just pumping hot steam. So yes, this crazy shit does happen, and I think that particular incident was submitted to the High Court and to the Investigatory Powers Tribunal. So yeah, and for example, I went, before I was preparing this court case, I went back, and also whilst I was preparing the High Court case, I fled to my parents' home. I fled home because the attacks on me were so intense. And in both cases, literally the day I flew out, I got the same email, and it said, I think that one was a GMX account, and it seemed to be a GMX like recommendation, but first of all, these GMX recommendations, I just like never got, and then got, several in a very like dense period, and then they stopped. So, and this wasn't even a GMX recommendation. This was just protect your loved ones today. Oh, what an odd email. Protect your loved ones today. And I am literally fleeing my home, and I'm going back to my parental home, to my loved ones, right? And I thought, no, it's coincidence. I couldn't even be bothered to open the email, like whatever. Then a month later, again, the attacks are so heavy, I have to flee the home again. I book my flights, which of course the intelligence agencies can see what day you're traveling because they've got access to all the databases. And the day I'm flying out again, I get the same email, protect your loved ones today. Coincidence? Well, I am actually flying out to, yes, protect them, to actually tell them what's happening to me and protect myself as well, right? And then I get this, and yes, I was assaulted on the airplane as well, and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, all these things happen. But this stuff about being sent spam emails, I mean, that's just like for GCHQ, just so easy, right? I mean, they don't even have to hack anything. They just send you an email with a fake header. And I got emails with fake headers as well. Sometimes to my own email address. And sometimes I received emails in my inbox which were sent to another email address, and then that email address that they were addressed to had some special meaning. Sorry, my head is being cooked as I'm talking. So I'm encouraging you to take everything they serve you and study it. For example, not just emails, look at my YouTube page and look at the comments on my YouTube page. Have a look. Because, for example, there was one when I said in a video, does anybody know what frequencies they use to attack us? What are these? Does anybody have any internal knowledge? And I got a YouTube comment that was very detailed, Like, oh yes, they're using these frequencies, like saying very specific frequencies with I think 1 decimal place or something like that. Of course I'm going to read it. So I expanded the comment, and then the question was, does swimming help? That's a really odd question. If you can see that comment, it's unless it gets deleted as soon as I say this, right? It's still online. And does swimming help? Well, I mean, they could have said does playing golf help, or does like aluminium help, or does like iodine help, or but instead this message is very detailed and does swimming help. And what it had to do with is that essentially I haven't left the house, working flat out, trying to put together my evidence, trying to find out who to talk to. I've been working flat out, and then I left the house once for like leisure time relaxation, and I went swimming. And I was stalked all the way there. In fact, I was irradiated, I believe also in the swimming pool, to my head, because at some point I literally felt like I can't breathe. And I had to get out of the pool before I drowned. That's very unusual for me. And then I was microwaved in the changing cabin, so I had to leave. And then I was microwaved all the way home in the car. So I know that the intelligence agencies have been abusing me and assaulting me when I went swimming. They certainly knew I went swimming because I'm being kept under surveillance 24/7. But then for them to watch my video and then pretend they know what frequencies they are, maybe they are even true, heck knows, maybe that's like part of it is true, and because they posted there, I can't believe that it's true, and therefore I'm not going to take it seriously. And then they put in, does swimming help? As in like, we watched you go swimming. I mean, when you're dealing with the intelligence agencies, very quickly you will have the impression you're dealing with a bunch of dumb children. Like brutish, utterly thick children. If you have that impression, that's a telltale sign you're dealing with intelligence. Ironically named intelligence. You're dealing with the secret services. Like utterly, I can't describe to you. In the end, I should make my whole public, the evidence I submit to a court public, just like Philip Kerr did, and then you can see the details of what exactly has been happening to me. But literally, that was the sort of stupidity that I'm dealing with non-stop. So if you want to have a look, that's what to look for. Yeah, this level. If you think this is like, oh no, it can't be. No, it can be. I'm telling you, this is exactly what to look for. So the other thing is, the other way to tell that you're dealing with, harassment from an agent is, I mean, remember, even these videos where I'm trying to systematically explain stuff to you, I am still being shot in the head with microwave weapons. After a year of harassment, I managed to actually cope, and I can sometimes even talk in full sentences whilst my head is being cooked. It took some training to do that, because most of the time you kind of just slow down. So if I talk too slow, it's because my brain keeps correcting for essentially non-stop continuous brain damage through intensely, incredibly painful microwave radiation coming from my next door neighbors. Not from satellites, none up here, it's coming from the side and from that side. I'm trying to block it out, but it's not always possible. Okay, so you're dealing with the videos of an abuse victim, essentially live. Would you then write like stupid comments and like derogatory comments? Of course not. Unless you're totally sick in the head, you wouldn't get to that stage. I mean, you wouldn't get to listening to my videos to this stage, and you wouldn't put really negative comments. So when people do, it means that they are agents, right? So now go through my YouTube videos and look at all the comments with jeering, with threats, with physical threats. Over Twitter, I just got that was priceless. People told me over YouTube that they are distributing flyers in the UK, and you can see that comment online. And then over Twitter, I got a tweet that also was online, but was taken then offline, and it said, "Are you? Is it your stupid flyers that are that I found on my windscreen or something like that? If you touch my car again, I'll break your legs." I'm like, I'm not even in the UK, I'm in Switzerland, so I can't be distributing flyers in the UK even if I wanted to. So, I'm like, hey, and I'm not distributing flyers, what's your problem again? And, this and then you look at the account, it has very few tweets, very recent. Yeah, it could be someone who just doesn't really tweet very much, which is why the only time they seem to come online is to just say ridiculous threats. I mean, would anybody actually get on Twitter when you get a flyer on your car? Most people just rip it off and throw it on the ground, as I've seen. No one's like, oh, hang on, let's just get my phone out, unlock, load Twitter, right? What's it says on the flyer? Okay, I'm so pissed off about having a piece of paper on my car. I'm literally going to go through this. Okay, hang on, let's just type it in. What sort of account is it? Oh yeah, okay, let's now tweet and send it straight. Bollocks. Really? I don't think so. I think the guy was just an agent. Unless he's utterly thick, right? I mean, it could also be someone who's genuine. I mean, as I said, you know, sometimes you have people who are not part of, you know, international corruption. They're literally just genuinely thick. It could be someone who's just genuinely that fucking stupid. But then it was priceless because, you know, someone else said, oh, I hope someone took a screenshot from this because the person has just deleted the tweet. Because I tweeted back, oh, well, I'm not distributing flyers, but thank you for sending an actual physical threat to an account that must be monitored by, I think, most intelligence agencies in the world, right? So most law enforcement they should be freaking watching my Twitter now because I keep, you know, sending messages to them. So you actually send a physical threat. I mean, that's hilarious. And then I said, by the way, you know, I mean, this is what you just did. And then that tweet got deleted. And then someone else said, oh, I hope you know, someone took a screenshot. And then I tweeted the screenshot. So you can see that genuinely happened and that this person genuinely sent a physical threat to me. Was he an idiot? Was he an agent? I don't know. But if this happens to you, please do the same. Take a screenshot, say, by the way, I'm a victim of the intelligence agencies. The intelligence agencies are monitoring this. You're either an idiot or you're an agent, but either way, any physical threats will be appearing in my court case because we don't know. We don't know who you are. So you, my friend, might end up on the charge sheet of MI5, right? Because I'll say to them, listen, I find it unlikely that someone gets a fly on their car and then tweets this shit at me. So I am much more tempted that this is an MI5 account, you know, or a fake GCHQ account. So that's what's going to happen, but throw this stuff back at them. Remember, it's a two-way street. Whatever crap they give you, throw it back. Find the clever ways to really make it embarrassing for them. Especially when you're a victim of the intelligence agencies, you've got all the license in the world, right? Throw it back at them. That's one thing. The other thing is go through my YouTube and please do this as an exercise and the study of the empire of bullshit. And I should make a dedicated video about symbolism. Please go through and look at all the accounts that have references to the all-seeing eye, to death, to murdering people, to harming people, to torturing people or coercing people. Just go through, either in the picture or in the header picture or in the little blurb or in any other messages that they actually put in. Just go through, because from that you can see, I mean, just like, it's very easy to just scroll down and see all the accounts that have just one eye staring, so like the all-seeing eye, you know. Yeah, these are agent accounts, because the all-seeing eye, right, it's even in the MI6 logo, it's like, you know, you've got the crown and then at the top you've got the all-seeing eye. So the all-seeing eye is an intelligence agency symbol, right? I took you to the website of the Investigatory Powers Tribunal as well. With the website is www. Please open a tab, Control T, and check it for yourself right now. It's www.ipt-uk.com. Enter. Look at the site. On the front page, last time I checked a few days ago, in the first third of the website, the first thing you see is a big fat eye, one single eye. And yes, you say, oh, spying, an eye. But the MI6 logo is not just the eye, you know, it's the all-seeing eye and the triangle and the pyramid, right? The pyramid being like this, the organizational pyramid, where they are supposedly at the top, right? And as we know, and as Paul Marco said, pyramidal organizations are psychopath-magnets. So it's like, yeah, hey, it's the psychopath club. Are you in the club? If you see the all-seeing eye, you can assume that's the intelligence agencies. It's just the bullshit they're using, okay? It's just like for them, like insider signals of, oh yeah, you know, this is it. Then other ways to check this, and I should also go into the video about symbolism. The all-seeing eye will appear in different, you know, forms. Sometimes it's in the shape of a galaxy that looks like an eye. Sometimes it's like, oh, the other thing that they love is like crop circles, because why crop circles can be used with electromagnetic weapons on satellites, and you can burn out these. This is why these are really geometric patterns, because from space, you know, a little laser just like carved it into the crop. So you're burning the crop, right? You're burning the this thing, and it just drops off, right? It either breaks off or it actually just dies. The plant dies. So crop circles can be literally carved into space, you know, I mean, oh God. Anyway, by crop circles showing an eye or some eye-like structure, that's also intelligence agencies, okay? The other thing is references to the London Eye. I mean, it's a freaking Ferris wheel, right? But it's called the London Eye because it's like a big eye, and it's meant to be staring at Parliament like, ooh, you know, you've got like MI5, MI6, the all-seeing eye. Maybe it's the other way around. No, I think it's MI5, MI6, and then the all-seeing eye. You know, all around the Parliament in the UK, and you've got the all-seeing eye, or this like round wheel, you know, you can climb on for a lot of money. You can go and then be taken up and, you know, see London from above. Beautiful. I did that once with guests, you know. But it costs a lot of money. And then you are in the eye, the London Eye, staring at Parliament, watching them, you know. And by the way, there's also has been uncovered that parliamentarians have been snooped on by GCHQ, I think. I think that's even in The Guardian or The Independent, so Telegraph, check it out. So that's the shit we're dealing with. It is essentially just like, isn't it just so frickin' enough? But oh yes, another thing to watch out for is the number 7. The number 7, that's also an intelligence agency, empire of bullshit conglomerate signal, like the magical 7. By the way, you can also Google Christine Lagarde numerology or Christine Lagarde number 7, and you can see a speech by Christine Lagarde, how she's going on about numerology skills and the magical 7. If you think that's bullshit, you can safely assume that Christine Lagarde must therefore be an agent of the empire of bullshit. And if you want to have the antithesis, you could go to Karen Hoodus, you can follow her on Twitter at Karen Hoodus, and then you can find out what she thinks about all this and what sort of bullshit she's trying to unmask. But yeah, this is essentially it. So it goes into finance, it goes into the intelligence agencies, and literally meanwhile, people, I'm not, you know, working in finance, I didn't ever try to expose corruption. I'm all about making systems better, but I am being mutilated to death in my own home. And meanwhile, people send me like, you know, symbols of the all-seeing eye and ooh, the magical number 7 and da 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 da. I mean, yeah, just check them out. Literally just check them. Please check them out yourself. You can go to any of my videos, look at the comments, and that's why I leave all the comments up. All the comments. I think I deleted one comment that was so vulgar. I was like, no, I just don't even, this is just too low, you know, we don't have to go there, you know. There's also like human dignity. The right to human dignity is essentially, you know, a universal, unalienable right. It applies to me, but it also applies, more importantly, it applies to any other victim who reads this and sees this shit. But when you read my page, don't just like believe everything that they say. Think for yourself, is this guy an agent? You can call them out if you like, but then it will lead to like bullshit wars. You don't even have to call them out. You can just study their methods, make a little collection, and for your own evidence to be used in court, say, well, you know, Katherine Horton, she gets these messages with this symbolism, the all-seeing eye, magical number 7, and the 7 will appear in email addresses as well. So intelligence agents have like this thing about 7, and I try to figure out, I asked one who was actually a whistleblower, and I said, what is this thing about the 7? And I was told, oh, it's about levels. There are 7 levels. Okay, well, yeah, you can probably stagger them, you know, because the intelligence agencies have only this like need to know policy and Official Secrets Act. I mean, they probably can't tell their head from their elbow most of the time, you know. So if you tell them, ooh, there are these levels and just keep working yourself up, wonderful, bullshit from the empire of bullshit. So apparently there are levels. And I don't know, does it mean like if someone has 1 7, they are below the people with 2 7s, and if it's 7 7 7, it's like the head of the intelligence agencies, or what? I don't know. It's too bullshit for me to actually even want to get into. It's like essentially brainwashed by psychopaths to brainwash other stupid people. That's how I can say, you know, tell it. At CERN, we certainly didn't have like fucking numerology, and we didn't organize ourselves into frickin' levels. In fact, all scientists did their own thing, and we were collaborative in a flat hierarchy, and no one could tell anybody what to do. You know, if they tried, they were told to, you know, and that's how we worked. And we certainly didn't, and no, we are not, you know, opening special portals and shit like that. No, we're not. We're actually doing really boring stuff and hard, like statistics and data analysis, and that's what I used to do at SAN and so on. It was, you know, a lot more low-key, but we certainly didn't have bullshit. In fact, all of us have like an allergic reaction to bullshit. And I most certainly, I mean, you know, I almost develop a rash when I have to read my own YouTube web page. And these poor children, I mean, most of them, remember, like teenagers and early people in their young 20s, and they are so brainwashed. You can see like how proud they are, just like, yay, you know, I'm on level 7, or I reached my first 7, or so if you see, you know, I don't know, like if you get in a website of, you know, I don't know, the I-777, you know, you know what you're dealing with. So that bull crap is also part of the empire of bullshit, unfortunately. Keep your eye, but again, study them. Study what they say, because once you know it's coming from the I and it's coming from a, you know, someone who's 777, just have a look what they say, you know, because another thing, and this is also really important, so write it down. And by the way, my videos are really long, but essentially I have to get it all out before I get assassinated, yeah? So that's why I put in contents, and I hope GCHQ doesn't go through or the NSA and actually just hack them and screw them up for you. So if you go through the contents and you click on the number, it should jump in the video to where I'm talking about this, okay? So that's why, you know, these videos are really long. You can pick what you want to hear. The other thing, what was I about to say? Threads blowing during. I just lost the thread. Study. Gee, I actually lost the thread. It happens sometimes. We had the numerology, we had the threats. What else happens to you? Oh, yeah. I think this is what I wanted to say. If you go today or now to my website and you go to the video, actually this is really good. To give you one example, right? I'll give you examples of what I mean. And this is how you have to kind of work out, are these people for real, or are these people part of the you know, are these people actually genuinely, and I yes, exactly, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to reply to 2 comments that are on my website, right, as examples of how you have to be maybe careful, and how maybe somebody could be an agent and maybe definitely is an agent. So okay, please go on my YouTube page, and I'll try to find it. So if you go to my YouTube page now and you click on the video, which is Stop 007, and then how to recapture the system in the global pivot, so how to recapture the system, and you look at the comment by Willow Fine Arts, he says, maybe we should call ourselves something with initials that represent all that are targeted, some anti-intelligence movement. How about the Trojans 171717? Now that contains 777, right? And now at first you could think, okay, maybe this guy is an agent, or else, you know, he is somebody who knows about numerology, who knows about this bullshit symbolism, and is taking the mickey out of that, you know. So the Trojans of 777 would be the Trojans of, you know, the intelligence agency, or this empire of bullshit. So that's a good point. Unfortunately, I don't have any numerology skills because I'm not actually an agent. So I don't actually know what 1 stands for. Does it also have a meaning, or is it just a, you know, just a filler? I have no idea. So this is the sort of things you can do, and then you can follow Willow Fine Arts. So you can see, is he maybe just somebody who part-time works as an agent, or is he somebody who's just made a genuinely really funny joke, taking the mickey out of their stupid symbolism, you know? And you can have these thoughts. You don't have to decide. You don't have to arrest the guy, or, you know, and please don't, because he maybe can be just, you know, just a very insightful guy. But keep running this, and when you see this, don't flip out immediately and say, oh, he must be an agent. Watch it. keep him on your radar, and essentially make, you know, if you want to really study this, go through and see what people post. People have worked out agent accounts and bot accounts basically by, for example, on my Twitter page, I have published like Spot the Bot, where literally I could tell that one user must have been a bot because of the weirdness of the messages, because of the fact that it's referred to freaking space lizards and this crap. So, you know, and then I just published it, Spot the Bot, on my Twitter. If you scroll down, you will find it. And then the account stopped spamming me. Wonderful. Let's get to the next level. So then I'm being spammed by more sophisticated, you know, methods by GCHQ, and it's all part of this brain mapping and what I read and how I react to it and how I think about it. Yes, I can't avoid that when I'm being brain scanned, but it doesn't mean I have to, you know, panic about it. So, hang on. I'm just trying to get to the other, my keyboard is down below, so that's why I'm doing this. So the other thing to do, as now as a contrast of somebody who most very definitely is an agent, in my view, is Robert Chalmers, who commented on exactly the same video. I think, is that right? Oh no, sorry, he commented on, I think, how to help the victims. Yes, so if you go to the video called, yeah, if you go to the, yeah, oh man, he even replied, that's wonderful, that's priceless. Okay, so this is definitely an agent account as far as I can tell. So go to Robert Chalmers, and he said, crowdfunding, eh, Catherine? Finally, a conclusive reason for the abject nonsense you have been advocating and espousing since the back end of last year. I would caution those watching this to be this is capitalized and boldface, very careful about where you choose to invest your hard-earned capital. Ensure you undertake the requisite due diligence and obtain independent financial advice where necessary. My albeit limited interaction with Catherine strongly suggests that she may not be who or what she claims to be. Who or what? This compounded with her flat-out refusal to scientifically verify the ostensible attacks against her in a neutral and controlled environment should raise a red flag in the minds of all but the most obtuse among you. Tread very carefully. Your capital may be at risk. Oh my. This is a goldmine of bullshit, and Robert Chalmers, I thank you so very much, because had I wanted to come up with an example of what an agent of the empire of bullshit sounds like, I couldn't have written a better example than what you have just done. So, what's the problem with this? First of all, my response, right? I said, dear Robert, if you feel that I'm not who I am, why don't you call my old colleges, eh? And ask. I think the video Who I Am with further particulars should flash up at the end of all of my videos. And now I say, you can call St. John's College, Oxford. You can say, was she really a fellow? And I was also an undergraduate at Hertford College, right? That's for sure. So all journalists, you can go and check. That's true. You know, and so much about my further particulars. Yeah, it's true. Second, furthermore, I'm very sorry to tell you that crowdfunding is a total success. It really is. Unlike all other investments, the investor invests himself instead of paying astronomical fees, which I personally call stupidity tax, for advisors who then make a few clicks for the investor via an online portal. And I should add also, let's just have a look at the financial crisis and see how much due diligence those independent financial advisors have actually given investors. So I would say, if you're an investor, get your own shit together and use your own freaking brain, please. Also, the investment is then certified, and so on the crowdfunding, the investment is then certified and can be seen on the site as well as the total sum raised. So the better crowdfunding websites give you the option of leaving a comment, maybe under a pseudonym, so you can see that your sum contributed to the total sum, so you know how much has been donated in total to this cause. You also see, I'm also saying that, also the investment is certified and can be seen on the site as well as the total sum raised. It doesn't get any more transparent than that. The cause is clearly stated and the investors told what the money is going to be used for exactly. Try finding that out for shared portfolio held with a bank. Oh dear, Robert. You know, I actually worked briefly in finance, but I can tell you've never worked in finance because otherwise I wouldn't spot that shit. So, that, and by the way, finance. Ooh, she worked in finance. No, I didn't work for a bank. I did a very brief stint for a couple of weeks for a project with an asset management firm, but that's it. So, but you know, I have studied finance in greatest detail of what's going on. So, number 3, you can see scientific verification if you look at my videos, Hack Attack and Assaults Every 60 Seconds, where you can see a scientific high-frequency measuring device showing attacks every 60 seconds. By the way, there are other videos of people using that acousticom of professionals who then show you how to insulate your home and stuff like that. A detailed explanation of that video is linked below that video. Also, the assaults over Christmas are documented. I think there's a spelling mistake. In fact, you can see a high frequency beam being modulated down into the hertz range where the brain interference frequencies are set to reside, as I was told. And that is the video where I'm in Germany over Christmas, and literally you can see as I'm scanning this acousticom across my head, on one side it goes doot, doot, doot. On the other side, if I remember correctly, which just goes, you know, shh, like noise. And the doot doot, this kind of tone you hear, the beeping, that is essentially a high frequency signal, because this measuring device only measures between 200 megahertz, so 200 times a million beats per second, up to 8 gigahertz, so 8 billion beats per second. And that's modulated down to a beat that goes doot doot doot, so just a few or just under a beat per second. And I think that is the range where the brain is, you know, can be interfered with. And then I said, dearest Robert, based on how much bullshit you have been putting into a single post, I mean, that's quite an achievement, right? I cannot but conclude that you are, in fact, an agent of the empire of bullshit. Nice to meet you, and glad you guys are watching my videos too. After all, you have to do the pivot. Best wishes to you and the empire. So, and I made this really long and detailed comment because I want all of you to see just that you can take this bullshit apart. And then Robert Chalmers actually replied, hang on, let's just go through that. He says, nice try, Katherine, but I'm afraid your nonsensical and flippant response will simply not pass muster. I mean, when they put this much effort in, they either have really good AI at GCHQ, you know, and some poor little bastard at the NSA or GCHQ actually was told literally, we want AI, but it has to sound like a total dickhead. Okay? It has to literally, like, perfectly. It has to sound like an agent from our empire, like a total knobhead. Can you program that? And probably this guy was like, okay, yeah, we'll do. My God, what am I doing to pay my student fees? So, what does he say? Number 1, I'm not questioning who you are as in the university you attended, as I'm sure you're well aware. This detail is of little or no consequence. I am questioning your assertion that you are a victim of the cross-border coordinated efforts of the UK, German and Swiss intelligence agencies. That would seem to me, and indeed anyone gifted with a modicum of common sense, to be extremely unlikely. Oh really? Like Philip Kerr, as in Philip Kerr versus MI5, which you can also find on the High Court, who was, because it is Philip Kerr versus MI5, as his lawyers, you know, quite well put it, and MI5 sent lawyers to defend themselves, so they agreed that, you know, this issue is between Philip Kerr and him. He was hounded from the UK all the way to Thailand. Yeah, so like Thai intelligence was also involved through MI6, I guess. Yeah, and now what you maybe don't know, Robert Chalmers, is that I was shot in the back of the head straight after a hearing entitled, right, Dr. Katherine Horton versus SIS, MI5 and GCHQ. Now, if you get shot in the head in front of your husband so that you collapse from pain, who could that possibly be? And then, you know, I also got like death threats and stuff like that, and survived an assassination attempt when my husband was again there. And, you know, I also was assaulted in Germany by a helicopter next to German intelligence, as you can probably figure out. It's not going to be a crime cartel that just happens to be doing drug running into Munich, flying over German intelligence and just on the way, irradiating me because they don't have anything better to do. And given that I with my own eyes saw how German intelligence was training children in front of my house how to gang stalk, that's probably German intelligence. And given that I measured attacks here in my Swiss home, and these are military weapons, and I've now got evidence that it's UK and German intelligence, well, I'm being gang stalked here. I've got videos about gang stalking, when I visited Schaffhausen, for example, and seems to be like the normal standard, how to call it, hum and tell networks. So that's probably Swiss intelligence, isn't it? So Robert, I'm very sorry. It's not extremely unlikely. It is extremely likely that if you get put on a watch list by one intelligence agency, it's gonna follow you around. So, number 2. Again, another straw man argument. I'd expect better of a person with your academic background. Very disappointed. I mean, if this is an AI thing, it's really good because, it's writes very convincingly. If it's an actual person at GCHQ, I mean, poor little shitter, really. But he does write quite articulately. I didn't for 1 minute suggest that crowdfunding can't be a successful endeavor. What I did suggest is that choosing to invest in the manner and on the basis of what you're proposing, more specifically in people whose respective claims have yet to be empirically verified, is perhaps, in all likelihood, a poor decision. Well, Robert, I think if you invest in a company, you also invest in essentially a group of people whose future performance still has to be verified, no? And we kind of have seen how really, really big banks like Goldman Sachs and, others have really cocked up and have used not just the investment of private people, but things like pension funds, companies, and then used it to commit fraud, implode the US economy, implode other economies. So given that we know that high-profile investment has been used for all sorts of fraud that damaged entire pension funds, I think if people start to invest in other people, the damage is limited. Because I really, honestly, Robert, you can hold me to this. If one of the TIs who raises, let's say, $2,000, with those $2,000 manages to collapse the US economy, I'll be impressed. I'll be like, shit, Robert, you were right. I should have seen that coming, mate. I didn't, sorry. You were right and I was wrong. Honestly, I think that danger doesn't quite arise. However, if you do invest in things like Goldman Sachs and these things, it seems to be not just possible, it seems to be like very likely that's what's going to happen. They're going to invest in like wars and fraud and if you're sick of that, why don't you just invest in people who work really hard to uncover crimes against humanity? Just an idea. So, 3, I assume a woman of your formerly scientific standing. Ooh, did I lose my scientific standing? Well, maybe if I lost it, it's probably because of the microwave irradiation. Is not suggesting that the tests undertaken in your bed or spare room in the aforementioned videos are in any way commensurate with those that would be undertaken in an independently supervised control environment, as in a lab. I'll ascribe more credit to you than this. Well, Robert, the thing is, I have been begging people to actually do a survey. For example, like here in Switzerland, the Zivilschutz, like the protection of the, the population. However, these people didn't turn up. That's the problem. I'm still on the phone to them, and I'm now trying. Again, I called the military police. They passed me on to another organization. Now I've called them. Can you please come and do independent scientific measurements and actually tell me what's being irradiated here in my home? And they said, sorry, you have to go back to the canton. Then I called back the military police and I said, look, people seem to be, doing these crimes. Do you have any equipment? And they said, sorry, we can't really investigate and do measurements because we first need to be told by another agency that we should act. And I said, hang on. It seems to be the case that people are using military weapons in private homes and you're the military police. And I said, yeah, but we don't really care about that unless somebody tells us to do something. So that's what I'm up against. I would love to have independent scientific inquiry, but for that people have to come forward and be willing to do that. I tried to access labs, but people didn't let me. So we're still working. I know of a lady called Melanie Richan who did, it's actually online. She did testing for implants and so on in a special room that's shielded by a lab, and those videos are also online. But she said to me that she worked a year. She worked a year to be able to use that. So that's what we're up against, Robert. What you can see is the best I can do within my means. And then he finishes off, and then it's also a lot of boldface. He says, then we come to the silly talk about the empire of bullshit. There's a star. Is there anything like, or is a star also like a special intelligence agency symbol, because it has appeared? This would be comical if it wasn't so serious. Oh God, you are an agent of the empire of bullshit. Did I just insult your employer? No one else would take this so seriously. May I remind you that you're in a position where you are now asking people to consider parting with their hard-earned cash to support your, what can only be described as outlandish endeavors. You, ergo, have a responsibility to ensure that said people are provided with an adequate and sound basis to make that decision, i.e. proof that you and others are actually being followed and attacked. Flippant, off-the-cuff remarks does them nor you any favors. To anyone watching this, I reiterate, do your due diligence and thoroughly investigate what is being purported to be true here before committing any of your capital. I can say no more to warn you. I hope you say no more, Robert, because this was utter bullshit. First of all, I so far have only said that you should invest in people, and I proposed the idea that people should open crowdfunding websites and actually to help them lift out of their poverty, right? Lift them out of the situation. And I said I would propose that these people make a little YouTube video. You can convince yourself, do you trust them, and you invest in those you trust. The investor, makes up his mind. I would also propose that if an investor, especially investors, come on investors, I ask you, due diligence, right? What due diligence do you do? Do you look over, price to earnings ratios, as it has been published by the often cooked books by the company, where professional accountants who basically know every trick in the trade and know how to, brush things under the carpet have made that? What other decisions do you found it on? Their website, what the employees might have said, Don't you have to work really hard to actually get at information like that, who the employees are, who really do a lot of work? Don't you have to pay a lot of money to business intelligence people who are essentially retired spies or alumni of spying agencies to then get into the organization if you really want to know detailed stuff? Isn't that the case? And meanwhile, you can invest directly in people, and the one thing you can be sure about is that your money goes to that person. I don't know. I would say, dear investors, of course, do your due diligence, make up your mind, but ask yourself, compare it to how much information are you given by the banks when you're investing in share portfolios through a bank, through an investment advisor, how many fees are branched off. I think for crowdfunding, I think the typical percentage that goes to the crowdfunding website is like 5%, I think. Then also victims can always have the option of just publishing their bank account and say, we would like to receive money directly, and then you don't have the 5% loss. That's also possible. So there are many things we can work out. However, if you invest directly in people, the one thing you can be sure about is that your money, unless the banks mess it up, or the crowdfunding website, the one thing you can be sure about, it is reaching that particular person. So make up your mind. But otherwise, I would say Robert Chalmers is certainly an agent of the empire of bullshit. And given that he's so keen on due diligence and banky stuff, I would place him squarely in there. But then again, thank you for the really detailed reply, because these sort of examples are utterly priceless. So I've talked enough. This is now in greatest detail the sort of stuff you have to watch out for as we're cycling to better systems and as we're dismantling bullshit. Thank you so much. If you actually listen to this entire video, I'm very impressed. Otherwise, there's always the shortcuts below in the description below the video. Thank you very much. Stay on your guard against bullshit, and any bullshit that you can fight is contributing to the global pivot out of the empire of bullshit. Wherever you are in the world, this is something that unites us all, from Tokyo over Beijing to Moscow to Nairobi to St. Petersburg, Johannesburg, name it, right? all the way to New York, to Sao Paulo, wherever you go, right, wherever you are in the world, just ask people, would you like to have a bit more bullshit? And I think people say, no thank you, right? We want less, if anything. So this is something we can globally unite behind, and also to fight bullshit and be what I call the anti-bullshit coalition. You don't have to have membership fees. I don't tell you what to do. I just ask you, use your brain, use your independent thought, your independent voice, and help me. Your effort, your work effort, your time, your finances, help me to fight bullshit. Do whatever you can to make our world contain less bullshit. That's all I'm trying to say. If you can help our particular cause, that would be much appreciated, but you can fight bullshit also in other places that will feed back into our cause. So please, wherever you see it, fight bullshit. Thank you very much for listening.